let's get started. We've talked about how useful plastics have become in our daily lives. Now let's talk about what happens to plastics once we're done with them. Cities produce a huge amount of waste. We have liquid waste going out our drains. We have gaseous waste going out our chimneys, primarily from production of heat using natural gas, methane. Let's concentrate on solid waste now. A city's solid waste can be broken up into categories, and by far the greatest amount is paper. Paper constitutes about 30% of our of our waste. Paper, this is by mass also, so paper's pretty heavy, and that helps jack up its percentage. Now, yard trimmings, food scraps, they are about 13%. Over here, we have wood, rubber, textiles, metals. These are at about 6 to 8% by mass. I'm surprised it's that high. Glass, I'm surprised it's that low. She's at about 5%. But then I recall how much glass has been replaced by plastics. Plastics comes in at 12% of the composition of municipal waste. It is getting more and more expensive to send all this waste to landfills. If you want to see the Columbus landfill, take a trip down 71 towards Cincinnati, and you can see it on your right. What a lot of places are doing is stepping up their recycling. Total recycling in the U.S. is about 30%. And again, it's mostly paper. Paper's had a market for a long time in the recycling business. Columbus, well, she has come up with after a number of years of working at it, 2012, they started curbside household recycling. And it has been a great success. In many regards, they have made money, they've saved money, and they are now allowing curbside or collecting at curbside to about 250,000 households. This isn't individuals, this is households. And it's single-family households or households less than 4 units. All right, 100 billion pounds of plastics, though, is produced in the U.S. each year. And we're looking at most of it, by far, ending up in landfills, even though we have done a pretty good job in increasing the amount that's been recycled. We saw this graph this slide before, and it still holds true that except for a very small amount that's been burned, every bit of plastic ever made still exists. It's sitting in landfills, it's sitting in the ocean, it's sitting in, sitting as little tiny flakes, hopefully more and more little tiny flakes that are being repurposed into new uses. Benches to milk jugs. Worldwide, only 3 to 5% of plastics are recycled in any way, and we're making more and more of this stuff every year. So we're recycling more plastic. So the great news is for PET and HDPE. Those are two of our big 6. Okay, PET. This is our recycling number 1 label, and high density polyethylene, that's our number 2. She is most often water and soda bottles, beverage bottles. No. beverage bottles. And HDPE, oh golly, let's think of milk jugs. You know, we've talked already about it being in many different areas, but these are more opaque, and the clear bottles for drinking are the PET. We've done a pretty darn good job of recycling those. In fact, the success rate is 32% of milk containers in the United States are recycled. That's pretty great. And 25% of drink bottles, soda, water, they're recycled. So that's fantastic. You get below there, and the story's a little bit different. By percentage, it's still 1 in 5 plastic bottles, so that's 20 to 25%. In 1995, it was 1 in 3. So let me explain what I'm saying. Overall, the poundage has gone up from 2003 to 2008, but the number has gone down. We're not recycling numbers in the same range, but we're making so much more plastic. The pounds are going up. And this is something that most people don't realize. Just because it is recyclable doesn't mean it goes into curbside collection. This is a business, remember, so they must compare costs that it takes, like Rumpke is our local, to sort and process versus how much they can sell it for. The packaging materials for metals such as aluminum cans, glass, paper, they've done a fabulous job in figuring out post-consumer treatment to send it into the stream for reuse. But plastics, the post-consumer recycled materials, that's PCR, that has been increasing a lot, especially since 2009. Manufacturers are just jumping all over themselves to try and increase that amount. But the infrastructure still is in development. And you can see, like, for example, Rumpke accepts only bottle-shaped plastics so far, at least at curbside, remember. You can find places, and down here I've listed some also, where you can take anything you want and get it recycled. But they have to depend upon their automated systems to effectively sort it. So here's a list I got from the Columbus Dispatch in 2011 of what can and cannot be recycled. And what bothers me is these clamshells right here. Okay, number 11 down here. Oh, sorry. The clamshells are so... Oh, fudgesicle. The clamshells are so bulky, and we use so many of them, and it's kind of ironic that we buy healthy foods in them and then we cannot recycle them. And the crunchier plastic is, the less likely it is to be able to recycle. And that's not a chemical problem. That is, they can't break it from the polymer to the monomer. It is an engineering concern, because, you know, they sell by mass, and these things are so low density, and their systems are not set up to use these. There's just so much bulk to them. So you just keep that in mind. The other one, number 6. Look at that guy. Plastic bags. And of course, I've probably mentioned this already, but this drives me insane that you use it for less than half an hour or single-use items, and then you just throw them away. But here's the great news. The evolution of plastic recycling in the last decade has been phenomenal. And manufacturers, as I say, are jumping all over each other, trying to produce containers with more and more PCR, post-consumer recycled material. They wash it, they melt it, they filter it. They wish you would keep pollutants out of it from other materials so they could just have beautiful, clear plastic bottles going into it, but that doesn't happen. Color and contamination are a great concern, the two most critical quality variables. We do not want to see colored, even if it is not really harmful. It is aesthetically displeasing. It's not a hazard, but we do not wish to see it. It's like spots on your apple, I suppose. So they are working hard to figure this out and realize the cycle of this. Once they figure how to make it cheaper and cheaper and better, there'll be more resale value for Rumpke, and they'll collect more and more, and the city of Columbus will make more and more, and it just feeds on itself. So here we are, and check this out. Now, these are water bottles, or beverage bottles, excuse me. And you'll notice the ones that are probably the high-end products are 100% recycled. That's figured into the cost of the product. But even something like Nestle's Resource Water has got 25 recycled material in their bottled water. It used to be you could not use recycled plastic in anything that had foodstuffs in it. So the joke was you'd have to put a lining of virgin plastic inside, and that, of course, was economically prohibitive. Isn't that great? Okay, keeps going. And now clamshells. This is what I love. As I mentioned, Earthbound Farms. I'm sorry to tout a certain company, but this is really neat. They won the Silver Award in 2010 from the Edison. This is an engineering award, where they're taking this PET and making into clamshells, taking the clamshells, and again, flowing those into the recycle stream. They crush them, send them to a processor, and like I say, it is just motivation. They've got to figure it out how to do it, and I'm not sure how or if they're making money doing this, but you have to start somewhere. Okay, we still have work to do though. Unfortunately, we buy 34 billion single-serving plastic bottles. That's pretty amazing. I guess that's about 30 gallons a person each year. But 80% of these, 75 to 80%, end up in a landfill or incinerated. And recycle needs to do a quantum step up. Or it ends up in, again, I think we've mentioned this before, these gyres. You start at the top, you see the plastic nurdles, you make them into black bottles, they end up in smaller and smaller chunks, and a lot of them end up in the North Pacific gyre. And this is a 7 to 9 million square mile place in the ocean that is just like a toilet that never flushes. So it's about 3 times the land mass of the United States, and it is impossible to clean up. It's sitting under the water. It's not just something they can go out and sweep. They figured it would take the U.S. Navy 20 years to get all this stuff up, and of course that's not economically feasible. They're just hoping to put less into it. There are plenty of people who are trying to bring attention to this fact, and sea animals suffer from it. They eat them, they get caught up in it, and it is an important thing to remember as we go forward in using plastics.